check you in.
Okay, so today I want to have a chat about the importance of our hip joint in maintaining lumbar spine stability and also knee function. So obviously the hip joint is the midpoint between our lower back and our knee, and if this region here is stiff, usually there's going to be more load and force travelling up into our lower back and also more load into the inside of our knee joint. What I want to focus on today is a couple of ways to try and improve two movements of our hip. The first being hip external rotation, which is our shin moving inwards, and also hip extension. So the hip extension is quite important obviously in everyday activities such as even your sit to stand, walking, and also in sports such as even soccer, because if we can get our hip a lot further back, what happens is we're going to be able to fire our glutes a lot more, and we're going to be less dependent on our hamstrings, groin and quad in those movements. So I want to use this flexi band here to show you how to stretch and improve those two movements. So what we want to do at home is we want to tie this flexi band up to something quite sturdy. So we'll pop it through into here, and the first movement what you want to focus on is the external rotation. So I pop the flexi band over and into my right leg there, right down in towards the hip joint, and I cross my leg over. I shuffle back to get a bit of tension. Now what I want to do is make sure my knee is in line with the hip here, and I create a reverse figure 4. So once I have that position set up, I can apply a bit of tension through my hand there, and I just feel a gentle stretch into the outside of my hip joint. Now with this stretch you want to try and hold it for about 30 seconds to a minute at least if you can, and then obviously repeat it to the other side. If this position here starts to get pretty easy for you, what you can also do is grab onto your shin just above your ankle and pull your leg away from the other leg to increase that stretch. So that's a bit of a progression there. Okay, but essentially if you're doing it right, you should be feeling it onto the outside of your hip joint there. Okay, so that's the hip external rotation. Hip extension is if we keep the band in the same position. I'm going to pop my leg through to here. I'm going to pop it up as high as I can and get some tension into the band. Get into a 90-90 position with my knee joint there. Pop your hands on your hip joint and just gently lean forwards through my pelvis. And I feel that stretch more the anterior part of my joint there. And make sure that we're not obviously slouching our lower back, we're keeping our lower back nice and neutral, and you are just coming forwards through your pelvis. So again, if you're doing this one right, you should be feeling it towards the front of the joint. Try and hold it for 30 seconds to a minute, and then of course repeat it onto the other side. Okay, so they're the two basic stretches for the hip joint, and you'll notice if you chip away at that for a couple of weeks, you will notice a big difference in the mobility of the hip. Alright, sweet.